Hey everybody, couple more changes around the studio. Don't feel like the look's gotten there 100% yet, but it's getting close, kind of digging it. Well, if you watched my last video, you know I was talking about what camera I got, and now that's brought up the question a lot of photographers get. What camera should you get? And that's a pretty hard question. There's a ton of debate on it. You get in the Canon versus Nikon versus Sony. Then you get people with Panasonic and Fuji, and it can go on and on. And it can be a really heated topic, but there are a few things without diving in the brand names that I kind of think you should be looking for. And I'm going to do my best to answer this hot topic today and the what camera you should be looking for if you're ready to make the jump from, say, an iPhone or a phone camera or a point and shoot, something along that matters, to really getting into photography. So for me, the big three are: does it have interchangeable lenses? Can it shoot RAW? And does it have a full manual mode? And the cameras we're going over today do, and most of your DSLRs in the upper middle price range are going to have this as well. In fact, most modern cameras, I would say it'd be hard to find one that didn't unless you're dealing with a point and shoot. After that, next three, still important, I would say, are the lens lineup, the size and the weight in the camera, and to me, whether or not it has a tilt screen. A tilt or articulating screen. And what I mean by that is the screen on the back isn't fixed to the back of the camera. You can tilt it up or down or pop it out to the side and fully articulate it. And the reasoning for that is, as you start getting creative with your photography, you want to try different angles. Or maybe you're shooting an event and you got to get the camera up high to shoot over the crowd. Or if you're shooting children, pets, birds, animals, you want to get it eye level. And it's just really hard to do that without a tilt or fully articulating screen. Personally, for me, I like the fully articulating. And then after those things, you kind of want to dive into, do you want to go used or new? And there's nothing wrong with either. You can get some really good deals on used camera equipment and still take amazing photos. I mean, some of those used cameras, people were shooting amazing photos on them years ago, and you can still do it today. You can get just as good of pictures. No reason not to go used. So I would say if your budget is below $800, that's probably the category you want to be looking at. And I'd be looking at probably Canon or Nikon, just because they have the most used lenses. Sony's kind of new to the game. When you're getting into buying a new camera, it kind of enters the picture for me. And still, brand really doesn't matter. I mean, there's probably all kinds of off-brands that make good cameras too, but that's just going to be typically my suggestion for a used Canon. Kind of look at Canon or Nikon. If you have something else in mind, go with that. Now, if your budget's over $800, then I'm going to go into some different options here. I'll have lots of notes down in the description, but this 2022, I'd be looking at going mirrorless. The DSLRs are kind of really fading out. So in this range, kind of entry-level cameras, we're going to be looking at between about $800 and $1,200. And the reason I say mirrorless is they're discontinuing making lenses for these, and the new lenses they're coming out with, I think, are pretty great. Canon, Sony, Nikon, they're all coming out with some really good glass. Sony's going to be your best if you want third-party options as far as like Tamron, Sigma, things of that matter. But really, they're coming out with some good lenses that are, middle of the line lenses, lower tier. They're not the L glass professional, but you can still get some really sharp pictures. And then when you want to upgrade to some professional glass, it's there too. So I was going used. There's nothing wrong with a DSLR. There's tons of glass out there already. You can buy used glass to your heart's content. You got third party. You got L glass. You got like Canon and Nikon's entry-level glass, their kit lenses. I mean, there's just tons of options. But if you want to get a new camera, spend the money on a new camera, I would look for something that's relevant now. I'd go mirrorless and look at some of these new lens lineups that are coming out. And on that topic, I know Canon better than anything just because my dad shot Canon and I've always shot Canon. That's not to say that Nikon or Sony or any of the others aren't as good or better, but I know that the Canon M mount, just because I know more about Canon than the rest, is kind of going wayside. There's some debate. They might be bringing it back, but their new RF mount lenses are the same size as the previous EF mount, which allows you to use that lens adapter where you can put all your EF lenses on there. So I would go with a Canon. If you're going Canon, I would go with the RF mount for the mirrorless options. That's any of your R series. I'd probably stay away from the M series, the M500, the M100, Mark 1s, 2s, just because until we see what they're going to do with the lens lineup, I wouldn't really risk it. You want something you can have for a long time, a mount you can use for years to come and grow with. So that we've kind of talked about the basics, the big three, interchangeable lenses, shoot raw, manual, the smaller three, lens lineup, size, weight, and tilt screen. The next thing I'd want to consider is what are you going to be shooting, and different cameras for different scenarios. So just to give you some examples, landscape, you might want weather sealed. Are you going to be shooting at the ocean? Is there a lot of salt water? You're going to be shooting in sand dunes. Weather sealing might be pretty important for you. My camera has pretty good weather sealing. It's not as good as some of the others, but the Canon RP is weather sealed. Are you going to be shooting at night? Are you really interested in astrophotography? You're going to want something that probably handles a higher ISO so you can keep your shutter speed low and you don't get kind of the star trails in your stars when you're shooting nightscapes. And then you want to consider size and weight. Some of these cameras and lenses can get pretty heavy. If you're hiking up a mountain, you might want a smaller, lighter camera. Are you going to be shooting sports, wildlife? Well, you're going to want fast frames per second. You're going to want to look at what kind of tracking it has. ISO can come into play again. Are you going to be seeing these critters mostly in the morning, in the evening, hiding out in the shade? Are you going to be shooting sports indoors? Or are you going to be shooting sports outdoors? And then you might still want to consider that weather sealing. Are you going to be shooting motocross? Is dirt going to be flying by as you pop off your shots? Is there a chance you might drop the camera in the water shooting waterfowl? Just different things you kind of got to keep in mind. Are you going to be shooting portraits, events? How special of an event is this? So portraits and events gets a little tricky. There's a stigma of the cameras that a bigger camera is a pro camera. A bigger lens is a pro lens. So you might not want the smallest, lightest camera for these options just because you're taking in customers. The customers are seeing you doing the shoots, and for some reason, in their mind, they see a big camera and they think you're a pro. I don't really like that, but it is kind of what's going on out there. Also, you're going to want frames per second. You don't want to miss that iconic moment when the bride throws the flowers or, kisses the groom or something like that. You want to be popping off the shots and you want to catch those candid moments. And especially for weddings or real special events, baptisms, maybe a press conference, something like that, I really think you should invest in a camera that has a dual card slot. That means you got 2 memory cards. If one fails, you're not going to miss the bride's big moment and she's not going to hate you for the rest of her life. So dual card slot, especially for weddings. I just wouldn't do it without it unless you got somebody that's in a bad pinch. They need a photographer. You're not charging them a lot of money. You're doing it more as a favor than a pro. You tell her you're taking that chance. Might get away with it, but you really want 2 card slots for your memory. All these cameras I'm going to recommend down below, I think are something that can take you from a beginner level to a pro level and beyond. But there may be a day when you really want to get out into a niche, you really dig in wildlife, and you want to, get something that has faster shutter speed, better ISO, weather sealed, something you couldn't afford in the beginning. that's when you might look to upgrade. But even then, I think these cameras recommended down below would be a great backup camera. Let's say you're in Alaska, a grizzly bear eats your $3,000 XYZ Nikon or Canon. Well, you can still shoot because you got a backup, and this will make a good backup. And you think I'm joking, but I used to work in Alaska doing trail crew work for the Forest Service. Those grizzly bears like plastic. They'll eat chainsaws. All right, moving on. Like I said before, there's not really a lot to think about when it comes to brand. Just whatever tickles your fancy. If you told me you chose Canon because you wanted to walk around talking like a pirate saying, "Arr, I'm going to shoot you with my Canon," it's a good enough reason for me. The brands are always in competition. The big three right now are Nikon, Sony, and Canon. And, you know, one year one might have the upper hand. The next year the other might. It could change right now while I'm talking to you. In general, it seems like wildlife photographers like Nikon. They think there's a better lens selection on the telephoto end, but that to me is debatable. I like Canon. People say Canon has the best color science. Some will argue with that. Some say Sony has the best color science. Some say Sony has the best lens lineup because of third-party options. It's really just going to come down to personal choice. So with all that said, I made some notes. I'm going to stick them down in the comments below. I picked 3 crop format cameras and 3 full frame cameras that I think would be worth looking at in 2022 if you're just diving into the field of photography. And like I said, something that can take you from beginner to pro and stay with you for the life of the camera. These are all around 20 to 26 megapixels, which don't get hung up on megapixels. If you look at the Canon 1D line, I mean, you got cameras that cost $4,000 or $5,000 that shot 10, 12 megapixels. And I mean, that's what the pros were using. So I know Canon's dropping their latest 100 megapixel camera soon. I just wouldn't get hung up on that. Look at the features you want. Look at what you're going to be shooting. Maybe one of these cameras isn't the best option for you, but this is a decent place to start. And I hope if you're just getting into photography, you find this helpful and you stick with it a long time. I'm going to be dropping more videos to help out you beginners, as long as still covering the intermediate and advanced stuff. We're covering adventure, photography, Lightroom, a little bit of reviewing gear. I'm not real gear heavy. But that is it for the day. Thank you for watching. Hit that like and subscribe button. Check out the comments down below and have a good day.